The great throne room of Xyrath was silent. Only the echo of distant drums moved through the air. The alien queen sat upon a throne made of glowing crystals, her silver crown floating above her head like a ring of cold fire. Her eyes were sharp, bright, and full of ancient power. She ruled 300 star systems, and no one ever dared to defy her. But today was different. Today, a human stood in front of her. His name was Commander Riven Hale, a soldier from Earth who had been captured during a border conflict. He was brought into the Queen's throne room in chains, yet he walked with a straight back. He did not look afraid. He did not bow. He did not tremble. The alien guards hissed angrily. No prisoner had ever stood tall before the Queen. But Riven Hale simply looked at her with calm eyes. The Queen raised one hand and the guards fell silent. She studied him for a long moment, almost amused. "So this is the human everyone fears," she said slowly, her voice echoing like metal. "Your species claims to survive anything. Let us see if that is true." Riven said nothing. He only stared back. His eyes held a quiet strength that made even the alien commanders shift uncomfortably. The Queen leaned forward. "I will give you a test, human," she said. "If you pass, I will let you live. If you fail, your body will feed the creatures below." The alien court laughed. They believed no human could succeed. No one ever survived the Queen's trials. The trials were designed to break monsters, soldiers, and even machines. But Riven did not react. He only asked one question: "What is your test?" The Queen smiled. It was a cold smile, dangerous and sharp. "You will enter my arena," she said, "and you will face the trial of beasts." A murmur spread through the hall. The trial of beasts was feared across the galaxy. Even the strongest warriors died within seconds. But Riven simply nodded. "Fine," he said quietly. "Open the gate." The Queen tilted her head, surprised by his courage or perhaps his foolishness. She motioned to her guards. "Take him." The chains around Riven clicked open, but he did not move until the guards pushed him forward. He walked through the long hallway that led to the arena. The walls were covered with old battle scars, scratches made by claws larger than any human hand. The air smelled of metal, dust, and death. Above him, thousands of alien spectators gathered in the arena stands. They shouted, hissed, and screamed. Some threw glowing stones. Others pointed at him with claws and laughed. "A human will last 10 seconds, one alien shouted. "Maybe 5, replied another. "This will be entertaining," said a third. But Riven ignored them all. His footsteps were steady, his breathing calm, his mind focused. He had trained for battles far worse than this. He had survived worlds where storms of fire fell from the sky. He had climbed mountains made of frozen metal. He had fought wars that nearly destroyed Earth. And now, he was here, facing a queen who believed he was weak. He stopped at the center of the arena. The ground was cracked and burned, filled with old bones. A loud horn exploded across the arena. The trial was beginning. High above, the queen watched from her crystal platform. "Show me your human strength," she whispered. Riven looked up at her for one heartbeat, then faced the giant steel doors in front of him. The doors began to shake violently. A deep roar echoed from behind them, a roar so powerful that it made the arena floor vibrate. Aliens in the stands cheered. "The beast is hungry. He will die in one bite. Humans are nothing." The queen lifted her hand. "Release the creature," she commanded. The metal doors slid open with a slow grinding sound. Darkness poured out like smoke. For a moment, nothing moved. Then, 2 massive red eyes opened in the shadows, glowing like molten fire. A deep growl rolled through the arena. The ground shook as the creature stepped forward. It was enormous, taller than any tank Riven had ever seen. Its body was covered in black armored scales. Its claws could cut through steel. Its teeth were long like swords. Steam rose from its nostrils as it sniffed the air. Slowly, it locked its gaze on the lone human standing before it. The crowd screamed with excitement. The queen leaned forward with interest, and Riven stayed calm. He lowered his center of gravity. He studied the beast's movements. He watched its breathing pattern. He waited for the first attack. The creature roared and charged at Riven, the ground trembling beneath its weight. Riven whispered under his breath, "All right then, let's begin." As the beast lunged, he moved, fast and sharp like lightning. The aliens gasped. The queen's eyes widened. The first moment of the test had begun, and already the galaxy realized something terrifying. The human was not afraid. The human was ready to fight, and the real battle was only starting.
The beast's charge shook the entire arena. Dust jumped from the cracked ground as its massive feet hammered forward. Its roar was so loud that even the alien spectators covered their ears. But Riven did not freeze. He did not scream. He did not run. Instead, he moved with sharp precision, like a soldier who had danced with death many times before. At the very last second, he rolled sideways, avoiding the monster's jaws by inches. The creature smashed into the stone wall, sending shards flying everywhere. Aliens gasped. No one had ever dodged that first attack. The queen narrowed her eyes. "Interesting," she whispered. Riven stood up quickly, breathing slow, controlled. He studied the creature, watching how it moved its shoulders before charging, watching the muscles tighten under its black scales. He knew its pattern now. "This thing is fast, but not smart," he muttered. The creature turned, angry that its prey had escaped. Steam burst from its nostrils. Its claws scraped deep lines into the ground. It roared again and came at him with double the rage. Riven sprinted toward a broken pillar. His boots kicked up dust as he zigzagged, forcing the creature to track him. The monster lunged again, but this time Riven jumped behind the pillar. The creature's huge head slammed into it, cracking the stone. For a moment, the beast was stunned. Riven saw his chance. He picked up a sharp bone from the ground, long, heavy, and jagged at the end. It wasn't a real weapon, but he didn't need a real one. He only needed an opening. He dashed forward and drove the bone into the soft flesh under the beast's jaw. The creature howled in pain. Alien spectators stood up, shocked. "No one ever injures the beast," one shouted. "How is a human doing this?" another cried. The queen leaned forward, her glowing eyes focused only on Riven. She did not look angry. She looked curious, almost excited. The wounded beast swung its tail. Riven jumped back, but the tail clipped him and sent him rolling across the arena floor. Dust filled the air as he hit the ground. He gritted his teeth and pushed himself up. His ribs hurt, but he stayed focused. Pain was familiar to him. Pain was a teacher. Pain meant he was still alive. The creature charged again, this time slower, more cautious, snarling at the human who dared hurt it. Riven circled it, staying just out of reach. He watched the beast's balance, its breathing, its timing. Then he saw it. Its left leg was slightly slower, heavier, an old wound. He could use that. He picked up another bone, this one even sharper, and held it tightly. The beast lunged, opening its jaws wide. Riven ran straight at it. Alien screamed, thinking he had lost his mind. But at the last second, Riven slid under the beast's body. Dust coated his clothes. Heat poured down from the creature's belly. As he slid, he jabbed the bone upward into the joint of the wounded leg. The beast collapsed with a thunderous crash, its roar shaking the stands. Riven rolled away, breathing hard. He stood up slowly, staring at the fallen creature. His heart pounded, but his expression stayed cold, focused, unbroken. The aliens were silent now, completely silent. They had never seen a human fight like this. The queen rose from her throne. Her voice echoed across the arena. "Human," she called, "why do you fight with such fury?" Riven looked up at her, sweat running down his neck. "Because humans survive. Because we don't give up. Because you want to test my strength. So I'll show you what humanity really is." The queen's eyes shimmered, as if a spark of respect touched them. But she wasn't finished. Not yet. She raised her hand. "Bring out the second challenge," she ordered. The arena floor trembled as hidden metal panels moved aside. A new threat rose slowly from beneath, a machine of war unlike anything Riven had ever seen. A towering battle construct made of alien steel, glowing with red energy veins. The alien crowd roared again. "Yes! This is the real test! No human can fight that!" Riven stared at the machine with a calm expression. It was massive, heavy, armored. But he wasn't afraid. He never was. The queen looked at him with a small, dangerous smile. "Your monster fight was impressive," she said, "but let us see how you handle a creation built only for death." The construct moved, its footsteps crushing the ground as it activated its targeting sensors. Red light locked onto Riven's chest. The machine's arm opened, revealing an energy cannon charging power. Spectators leaned forward. "This is the end. He cannot dodge that. Even elite alien warriors die here." Riven's eyes narrowed. He whispered under his breath, "No test breaks a human." The cannon fired, a beam of burning red light shooting across the arena. Riven dove behind a shattered wall just in time. The beam struck the ground, exploding in a cloud of molten stone. The queen watched silently, her fingers tapping the side of her throne. She expected fear, panic, screaming. But Riven did not panic. He did not freeze. He only thought, observed, planned. He peeked from behind cover. The machine was powerful, yes, but slow. He could use that. He took a deep breath. His muscles tensed. His eyes sharpened. He stepped from behind the wall and sprinted toward the machine. The crowd screamed in disbelief. The queen stood up entirely now. What was this human doing? Riven ran straight toward the glowing cannon, straight toward the death machine itself. His voice was steady as he whispered, "This test isn't over." Riven sprinted toward the giant battle construct, dust flying behind him as the machine locked onto his movement. The alien spectators were screaming, unable to understand why a human would run directly towards certain death. "He has lost his mind," one alien shouted. "No organic creature can defeat a war construct," yelled another. But Riven's steps were steady, fast, and focused. He had studied the machine's rhythm, the delay in its cannon recharge, the slow rotation of its armored torso. He was not running blindly, he was running with purpose. The machine fired another burning beam of energy. Riven dove sideways, the heat brushing past him like a firestorm. He did not stop moving. He could not stop. If he paused for even 1 second, the machine would tear him apart. He slipped behind a broken column, breathing hard, dust covering his face. The machine rotated slowly, searching for him. Its red targeting lasers swept across the arena like hunting eyes. Above, the queen watched, her expression unreadable. She had seen warriors panic, cry, and beg before the machine. But this human was different. He was thinking while running for his life. He was studying the enemy instead of fearing it. She whispered quietly, "What drives you, human?" Riven looked around urgently, searching for anything he could use. His eyes landed on the fallen beast from earlier. The giant creature's armored scales were scattered across the ground where it collapsed. Some pieces were cracked open, still glowing faintly with heat. A plan formed in his mind. Humans were good at plans. Humans were good at impossible things. He sprinted toward the beast's remains just as the machine fired another beam. The explosion threw dust and bones into the air, but Riven did not slow down. He grabbed a large chunk of the beast's armor, heavy, curved, and thick. It was almost too heavy to lift with one hand, but he forced himself to carry it. He crouched behind the beast's remains as the machine scanned for heat signatures. The queen leaned forward slightly. "What is he doing?" she murmured. Riven waited for the machine's cannon to glow again. The moment he saw the red light gather, he moved. He held the beast armor like a shield and ran directly toward the machine. The crowd exploded into shocked screams. "Impossible! He cannot block the cannon. No human strength can lift that armor." The cannon fired. A burning blast of red energy slammed into the shield. Riven gritted his teeth as the force pushed him back, sliding across the dirt. His arms felt like they were on fire. The shield cracked, but did not break. Human muscle held it up. Human will kept it steady. When the blast ended, Riven threw the shield aside and charged directly at the machine. He reached its massive metal leg and slammed his shoulder into it, sliding underneath the body of the construct. The machine tried to rotate, but its torso was too heavy to turn fast. This was Riven's chance. He looked up at the glowing cables under the belly of the machine. Energy pulsed through them like blood. They were exposed, vulnerable. The aliens had made their machine strong on the outside, but weak on the inside. Riven grabbed a long shard of bone and stabbed it upward into the cables. Electric sparks exploded. The machine screamed with a metallic roar. Its lights flickered. Its cannon shut down. The queen stood up entirely now. Her voice echoed across the arena. "He found the weakness," she said. The spectators were stunned into silence. Some trembled, realizing a truth they had never accepted before. Humans were different. Humans were terrifying. Humans adapted to every threat. The machine staggered. Riven crawled out from underneath it, covered in smoke and dust. He ran toward the back of the construct. He climbed onto its leg, using cracks and dents as handholds. The machine swung an arm wildly, trying to shake him off, but Riven held tight. He climbed to the machine's back, where a small maintenance panel was located. He ripped the panel open with raw strength, metal groaning under his grip. He punched the first core, breaking it. Sparks flew. He pulled out the second one. He smashed the third with his elbow. The machine let out a final metallic scream and collapsed to the ground like a dying beast. The entire arena shook from the impact. Dust clouds rose into the air, covering everything. When the dust settled, Riven stood beside the fallen machine, breathing heavily, but still standing strong. Alien warriors stared at him with wide eyes. Some could not move, some could not speak, some felt fear for the first time. The queen stepped forward to the edge of her throne platform. Her voice was calm, but filled with something new. Respect, curiosity, and a small hint of wonder. She spoke loudly enough for the entire arena to hear. "Human," she said, "tell me the truth. What gives your kind this strength? What secret drives you to survive the impossible?" The arena fell silent. Every alien leaned forward, wanting to hear the answer. Riven looked up at the queen, his voice steady, even though he was tired. "We fight because we protect. We fight because we adapt. We fight because our world forced us to evolve. But most of all," he said, his eyes sharp, "humans never stop trying." The queen stared at him for a long moment. Her expression softened. For the first time in centuries, she felt something strange, something she had not felt toward any other species: admiration. But before she could speak, the arena suddenly trembled. A distant explosion echoed from beyond the palace walls. Alien alarms blared across the city. The sky outside turned red from burning ships. An enemy had arrived. A powerful army that even the queen feared. Riven turned his head slowly, his eyes narrowed. A new battle had begun, and his test was far from over. The walls of the queen's palace shook again, louder this time. Stones vibrated, dust fell from the high crystal ceiling, and the alien guards tensed as distant screams echoed through the corridors. The red glow outside spread across the sky like fire. Riven turned his head toward the sound, his breathing slowed, his mind sharpened. "That wasn't an accident," he said quietly. "That was an attack." The queen's eyes narrowed. She raised one hand, and her royal guards rushed to her side. "Report," she ordered, her voice sharp as a blade. A commander bowed quickly, fear shaking his voice. "Your Majesty, the Dravak Legion has breached the outer gates. They are moving toward the palace." The alien arena erupted in panic. The spectators jumped from their seats. Some ran, others screamed. The Dravak Legion was a name that made even strong warriors tremble. They were conquerors, destroyers, and devourers of entire planets. The queen clenched her jaw. "They come now, during my trials," she whispered. "A challenge to my throne." But then she looked down at Riven, the human who stood alone on the battlefield of her arena. "You," she said, pointing at him, "why do you not look afraid?" Riven wiped dust from his face. "Fear doesn't help anyone," he said. "Tell me where they're coming from." The commander stepped forward. "They have broken through the eastern wall. They are using plasma bombers. They will reach this hall in minutes." Riven nodded once, calm as ever. Then you need a front line. The aliens stared at him confused. You would fight for us? One asked. You are our prisoner, another hissed. You should run, human, a third whispered. Riven shook his head. If they destroy this palace, then they destroy you. And if they destroy you, they destroy me too. The queen studied him with new eyes. You would defend even those who tested you? You would fight for people who wanted to break you? Riven gave a small, tired smile. This isn't about your test anymore. This is about survival. Explosions shook the ground again, closer than before. The queen straightened her crown, her voice hardened. Arm the arena, she ordered. Prepare for war. Panels opened across the arena floor, revealing racks of alien weapons, glowing spears, plasma shields, and energy rifles. The alien guards grabbed their gear quickly, forming lines around their queen. Riven reached out and picked up a plasma spear, feeling its energy hum in his hand. It was longer than a human weapon, heavier, but he spun it once in his grip. Good balance, he muttered. The queen watched him and spoke softly. You fight like no creature I have ever seen. Before Riven could answer, the eastern doors of the arena exploded inward. A wave of Dravak soldiers poured through the smoke. Tall beasts with jagged armor, glowing eyes.
The battlefield inside the arena burned with red light and dark smoke. Dravak soldiers stormed through the broken gates like a wave of claws, metal, and fire. But the human stood in front of them like an unmovable wall, his plasma spear glowing brighter with every strike. Riven's breath was heavy but steady. Sweat rolled down his face, dust clung to his clothes, but his eyes stayed sharp, cold, and focused. He fought as if the entire galaxy depended on his next step. And maybe it did. Another Dravak soldier charged, swinging a double-bladed axe. Riven blocked with the spear shaft and twisted hard. The axe flew into the air. Riven grabbed the Dravak by the jaw and slammed it onto the ground. The creature did not rise. Alien guards behind him trembled. One whispered, "He fights like a whole army." Another said, "He fights like a force of nature." The queen watched from her high platform, her crystal throne reflecting the flames of the battle. Her expression was no longer cold, no longer cruel. It held something rare, something the galaxy had not seen in her for centuries: respect. But the battle was far from won. A deep, thunderous roar echoed from the palace gate. Every alien froze. Even the Dravak soldiers paused and looked back. Riven narrowed his eyes. "That doesn't sound good," he muttered. The queen's commander stepped forward with shaking hands. "Your Majesty, the Dravak warlord has entered the palace. He is coming here." The queen inhaled sharply. "Impossible," she whispered. "He never enters himself." But he had, and the reason became clear when the massive middle doors exploded. A giant figure stepped through the smoke, 3 meters tall, covered in black armor, its horns glowing red. The Dravak warlord, the conqueror of 5 systems, the destroyer of thousands of worlds, the terror of the galaxy. He held a warhammer that crackled with dark lightning. He looked down at Riven as if he were nothing more than dust. Riven tightened his grip on the plasma spear. "Well," he said softly, "this just got interesting." The warlord pointed his hammer at him. "You," he growled, his voice deep and monstrous, "you killed my soldiers." Riven shrugged. "They attacked first." The warlord roared and charged. His heavy steps cracked the arena floor. Alien guards ran back in terror. Even the queen stepped away from the edge. Riven, however, walked forward. Each step, calm, balanced, fearless. The warlord swung his hammer. The air shook. The ground trembled. The sound echoed like thunder. Riven dodged by a hair. The hammer smashed into the stone, creating a crater. Dust exploded upward, covering both fighters.
The warlord pulled the hammer up and swung again. This time, Riven blocked the blow with his spear. The energy shockwave threw him backward. He rolled across the ground and landed on one knee. His arms shook, his breath grew heavy, but he forced himself to stand again. Because humans rise. That was their nature. The warlord marched forward. "You are broken," he growled. "You cannot win." Riven wiped blood from his mouth and smiled. "You talk too much." The warlord roared and charged again. Riven sprinted towards him. They clashed in the center of the arena. Hammer against spear, strength against speed, monster against human. The queen's voice trembled as she whispered, "He faces the warlord without fear." Her commander nodded slowly. No one has ever faced him and lived. But Riven was not like others. He used every moment, every gap, every mistake. He dodged a heavy swing, slid behind the warlord, and stabbed the plasma spear into the gap of the armor. Dark sparks burst out. The warlord howled in rage and slammed his elbow back. The hit sent Riven rolling across the floor again. His ribs screamed in pain, his vision blurred, but he forced himself to rise, because humans rise. That was their nature. The warlord marched forward. "You are broken," he growled. "You cannot win." Riven wiped blood from his mouth and smiled. "You talk too much." The warlord roared and charged again. Riven sprinted towards him. They clashed in the center of the arena. Hammer against spear, strength against speed, monster against human. The queen's voice trembled as she whispered, "He faces the warlord without fear." Her commander nodded slowly. No one has ever faced him and lived. But Riven was not like others. He used every moment, every gap, every mistake. He dodged a heavy swing, slid behind the warlord, and stabbed the plasma spear into the gap of the armor. Dark sparks burst out. The warlord howled in rage and slammed his elbow back. The hit sent Riven rolling across the floor again. His ribs screamed in pain, his vision blurred, but he forced himself to rise. Because humans rise. That was their nature. The warlord marched forward. "You are broken," he growled. "You cannot win." Riven wiped blood from his mouth and smiled. "Whew, you talk too much." The warlord roared and charged again. Riven sprinted towards him. They clashed in the center of the arena. Hammer against spear, strength against speed, monster against human. The queen's voice trembled as she whispered, "He faces the warlord without fear." Her commander nodded slowly. No one has ever faced him and lived. But Riven was not like others. He used every moment, every gap, every mistake. He dodged a heavy swing, slid behind the warlord, and stabbed the plasma spear into the gap of the armor. Dark sparks burst out. The warlord howled in rage and slammed his elbow back. The hit sent Riven rolling across the floor again. His ribs screamed in pain, his vision blurred, but he forced himself to rise, because humans rise. That was their nature. The warlord marched forward. "You are broken," he growled. "You cannot win." Riven wiped blood from his mouth and smiled. "Whew, you talk too much." The warlord roared and charged again. Riven sprinted towards him. They clashed in the center of the arena. Hammer against spear, strength against speed, monster against human. The queen's voice trembled as she whispered, "He faces the warlord without fear." Her commander nodded slowly. No one has ever faced him and lived. But Riven was not like others. He used every moment, every gap, every mistake. He dodged a heavy swing, slid behind the warlord, and stabbed the plasma spear into the gap of the armor. Dark sparks burst out. The warlord howled in rage and slammed his elbow back. His ribs screamed in pain, his vision blurred, but he forced himself to rise, because humans rise. That was their nature. The warlord marched forward. "You are broken," he growled. "You cannot win." Riven wiped blood from his mouth and smiled. "Whew, you talk too much." The warlord roared and charged again. Riven sprinted towards him. They clashed in the center of the arena. Hammer against spear, strength against speed, monster against human. The queen's voice trembled as she whispered,
He faces the warlord without fear. Her commander nodded slowly. No one has ever faced him and lived. But Riven was not like others. He used every moment, every gap, every mistake. He dodged a heavy swing, slid behind the warlord, and stabbed the plasma spear into the gap of the armor. Dark sparks burst out. The warlord howled in rage and slammed his elbow back. His ribs screamed in pain, his vision blurred, but he forced himself to rise, because humans rise. That was their nature. The warlord marched forward. "You are broken," he growled. "You cannot win." Riven wiped blood from his mouth and smiled. "Whew, you talk too much." The warlord roared and charged again. Riven sprinted towards him. They clashed in the center of the arena. Hammer against spear, strength against speed, monster against human. The queen's voice trembled as she whispered, "He faces the warlord without fear." Her commander nodded slowly. No one has ever faced him and lived. But Riven was not like others. He used every moment, every gap, every mistake. He dodged a heavy swing, slid behind the warlord, and stabbed the plasma spear into the gap of the armor. Dark sparks burst out. The warlord howled in rage and slammed his elbow back. His ribs screamed in pain, his vision blurred, but he forced himself to rise, because humans rise. That was their nature. The warlord marched forward. "You are broken," he growled. "You cannot win." Riven wiped blood from his mouth and smiled. "Whew, you talk too much." The warlord roared and charged again. Riven sprinted towards him. They clashed in the center of the arena. Hammer against spear, strength against speed, monster against human. The queen's voice trembled as she whispered, "He faces the warlord without fear." Her commander nodded slowly. No one has ever faced him and lived. But Riven was not like others. He used every moment, every gap, every mistake. He dodged a heavy swing, slid behind the warlord, and stabbed the plasma spear into the gap of the armor. Dark sparks burst out. The warlord howled in rage and slammed his elbow back. His ribs screamed in pain, his vision blurred, but he forced himself to rise, because humans rise. That was their nature. The warlord marched forward. "You are broken," he growled. "You cannot win." Riven wiped